All right, Laura, I think we're about ready to kick this off.
Yes, we're ready.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. My name is Mark Heiser with Building Codes Division, State of Oregon. Thank you, everyone who's here to look at the adoption process for bringing ASHRAE 90.1 2019 into the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, replacing the use of ASHRAE 90.1 2016, as well as what would be outgoing the statewide alternate method for using the 2018 IECC, looking to get adoption this year. I would like to point out that we have several other people from the division here. We have Laura Burns, who is helping set this up, Kelly Thomas from the division, who's also part of the energy staff. Andy Bolton is here with us today. He's our policy analyst. When we get to a point of asking questions, he will be recognizing people via the chat. If people are looking to wanting to ask questions of staff as we go on, or bring up questions. One thing I'd like to do in addition, and I'm trying to remember other people I saw here from staff, and I apologize if you haven't seen them, if I miss you, but one thing I'd like to do is maybe go down, and it pops up alphabetically, to have people introduce themselves and their interests being here today. I have sort of the list of people. I will ask that people could try and keep their mics muted until recognized, if at all possible. But for this, we'll just sort of do introductions by alphabetical. It looks like first name, Adam Hutchinson.
Yeah, so I'm Adam Hutchinson from the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association.
Okay. Our acting director, Alana Cox, is with us today.
Hi, good afternoon.
And you're going to have to forgive me if I don't get everything correct. Ali Saheli.
Yes, hi. Ali Saheli from City of Portland, Mechanical Plan Review.
Okay. Amy Cortese.
Hi, Amy Cortese, she, her.
Andy Bolton. Just one more time.
Hi, this is Andy. Yep. As Mark said, policy analyst at the division.
Okay. Anson Chen.
Hi, I'm Anson with RDH Building Science. We're building enclosure consultants.
Okay. Blake Schlide.
Yeah, Blake Schlide, Oregon Department of Energy.
Brad Rowe. All right, we'll move along. We have a few unidentified callers. We'll try and get identified later.
Brad Rowe with Thermal Design.
Okay. Cameron Chorney.
Yeah, this is Cameron with RDH Building Science. Yeah, looking forward to understand what changes are coming up here.
Casey McDonald.
Yep, I'm Casey McDonald, also with RDH Building Science. Thanks for having me.
Is it Chanel Horn?
Yes, that's correct. Chanel Horn with the City of Portland Life Safety Plans Examiner.
Thank you. Chris Strang.
Chris Strang with City of Eugene Commercial Plan Review.
Cindy Strecker.
Hi, Cindy Strecker. I'm with Clear Result. I'm also the ASHRAE Oregon Chapter Government Affairs Chair.
Okay. Clark Brockman, welcome back to the U.S.
Hi, Mark. Thanks. Clark Brockman with Sarah Architects.
Dave Young.
Yep, Dave Young from RDH Building Science.
David Heslem.
David Heslem, Executive Director, Earth Advantage, Oregon nonprofit.
Okay. Oh, my. You'll have to forgive me, the names do move on me a bit. So Devin Follingstad.
Yes, Devin Follingstad. I'm an architect with Qualified Enclosure Consultants.
Okay. Douglas Morgan.
Hi, everybody. Doug Morgan with the City of Portland. I'm an engineering manager.
Eli Vollum.
Yeah, Eli here with eWeb. I'm on the Construction Industry Energy Board and Residential Manufactured Structures Board.
Okay. Aaron McDade.
Everyone, Erin McDade from Architecture 2030. We're a nonprofit organization that manages the Zero Code Calculator, which is referenced in the code.
Thank you. Gary Heikkinen.
Yeah, hi, Gary Heikkinen, energy consultant, recently retired from Northwest Natural. Also sit on the Construction Industry Energy Board.
Gordon Miller.
Hey, Gordon Miller, another member of the RDH Building Science team.
Right. Guy Altman.
Yes, Guy Altman, City of Portland Life Safety Plans Examiner.
Harold Freiberg. Hope I got that one right. All right. We'll move on to Jake LaManna from Mana.
Jake LaManna, Quality Assurance with Walsh Construction.
James Cullen.
James Cohen with PAE Consulting Engineers in Portland.
James Smith.
Yeah, Jim Smith, Midwest Regional Manager for the American Wood Council.
Jian Zhang.
Jinjiang Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. I work with my colleagues to support the Department of Energy Energy Codes Program for development of 90.1 IECC and evaluation of those national model codes.
Okay. Julia Heyer with BCD. Okay, Robert Keel.
I am Robert Keel. I'm a life safety plan examiner with the City of Portland.
Ken Peterson.
Yeah, this is Ken Peterson with Alliance System, mechanical designer.
Okay.
Here.
Kirsten Adams.
Hi, Kirsten Adams, Public Affairs Counsel for Associated General Contractors.
Okay, Laura Baker.
Hi, I'm Laura Baker. I'm with Responsible Energy Codes Alliance.
Lauren Ross.
Lauren Ross, also with the American Wood Council.
Okay, Louis Starr.
Louis Starr with Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance.
Mark Lyles.
Yes, Mark Lyles, Senior Project Manager at New Buildings Institute.
Okay, Matt Engstrand.
Yeah, this is Matt Engstrand. I'm an architect.
Okay, Megan Tosh.
Megan Tosh, I'm an energy modeler at Alenter.
Michael Roberts.
Michael Roberts, LRF.
Mike Steffen.
Mike Steffen, Walsh Construction Company.
Mike Manzi.
Yes, Mike Manzi, Bora Architects.
Nathan Beck.
Nathan Beck with Solus Incorporated, lighting and lighting controls manufacturer rep.
Neil Bonsgard.
Yep, you got it. Neil Bonsgard, he, him, Central Oregon Environmental Center.
And Kelly Thomas.
Kelly with the Building Codes Division.
Tom Young.
Hi, Tom Young, Northwest Concrete Masonry Association.
Tyler Glaze.
Tyler Glaze, Policy Analyst with the division.
Vincent Martinez.
Chief Operating Officer for Architecture 2030.
Well, welcome aboard, everybody. For those of you who are in the last half of the alphabet, thank you for joining, the majority from M and under. So to kick things off today, we'd like to just sort of go through an overview of the move for the division to move from an IECC base to ASHRAE standard 91 as our base energy code. This began first and foremost. Let's do with the introduction of Executive Order 1720, which asked for alignment with those codes at the time of the adoption. One thing that came to us was at the division, the director at the time, administrator, saw that the ANSI national process really would get us to those goals faster. The one piece of the ASHRAE process is that it is pretty much has all stakeholders there when things happen. Pretty much everyone is represented at the table. It does go through a very rigorous cost analysis when it happens. It would allow us to do quicker adoption to really have the best code in the nation. We are going about as fast as possible for bringing in 90.1 2019 now, as our former administrator Long pointed out. We're going to try and get it in as quickly as possible. And that's what we're here for today. It happens with 90.1, things go much faster. There's less cost to the state, say, for developing administrative processes, adoption, working on books, modifications, nice free software from PNNL. Thank you, PNNL staff, who are joining us today. We have less concern about worrying about federal preemption issues for equipment, because once 90.1 has it, we can get it adopted into our code faster. One thing as well was we saw that in alignment with Senate Bill 79, working with Architecture 2030, using their zero code calculator, one thing that we get from that is really being able to show designers and building owners right off the bat how close their building is to being able to achieve net zero day one. They get to see probably on average for their location how much photovoltaics they could fit on their roof and how close that would get them to zero. With 90.1 2016 and now with hopefully 90.1 2019 coming in of the PNNL models, we're probably getting close to having somewhere between 4 and 6 of the prototypes are really zero ready today. And with that, wanted to now point out about the, excuse me again, about the calculator, and CommCheck compatibility. One important piece the division feels is having the CommCheck reports available for building officials. It's a great cross-reference to show whether or not, well, basically what's in the design, they can cross-reference from the plans and specs directly to the CommCheck to see what passes, what doesn't. We're trying to make sure that any revisions we do in the state do align with CommCheck. Anything that would happen really needs to be just on a small supplemental sheet. One point going back to a little bit on the history of the use of standard 90.1, the first use of standard 90.1, the division had told stakeholders that we were only going to adopt as is, not do open up for changes, get it adopted as quickly as possible. And that's sort of what we're aligning for this time, just due to the shortness of time period, and mainly to make that promise to not do pieces that would require extensive review. We left out a lot of things that Oregon code in our 2014 OEESC had that were better than 90.1. That will be a conversation piece later today. But that's more on the history. So anything that we're looking at, we do want to make sure that we don't have to ask the folks at PNNL to create a state-specific one. We really want to keep that good compliance software as is and not have to get a state-specific version. because simply time delay, it could probably take us up to a year to get one for us. So we want to use an off-the-shelf product and save a lot of that administrative cost as well. Again, as well, when we came into using 90.1, we wanted to make sure that, well, we're aligning with the zero code calculator. The Architecture 2030 people came up with this for helping owners see how much you could get towards your building achieving net zero with on-site renewables. And then if your building was, say, particularly tall or something really energy intensive like a restaurant, how much additional renewable you would need from off-site sources to get that building to a net zero capable status. Or for those owners who are looking to go to zero day one, that gives them a good idea. And what this does is also just creates a record of progression in the states as the as buildings are permitted under the Oregon Energy Code. One note about this is that when we did ASHRAE 90.1 2016, during sort of the swap over period as people were getting used to the format of ASHRAE, the IECC coming out 2 years later than 90.1 normally has a fairly similar efficiency level, different format, but as people are getting used to the format differences and looking for trying to maintain some of the similarities that were in our current Oregon code, 2014 Oregon code, we did have statewide alternate method 19-01, which did allow commercial buildings to use the IECC in lieu of 90.1 2016. As you see on your screen, when we get to the administrative portions of the code, we're going to have a similar cleanup for 90.1 2019. We're hoping to clarify a bit more of the language. We missed a few things about some of the administrative pieces to help make it better. And as we bring in these clarifications, one important piece, and you'll have to forgive me a second here as I scroll down, is integration of the residential buildings. When we went with 90.1 2016, we said we wouldn't touch it at all, but that left out low-rise residential buildings 3 stories and under, so we had to create what was listed as Path 2 under the Oregon Energy Code for 2019. So with this version, we're going to do a bit of integration to make sure that if you are using the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, you use ASHRAE 90.1. If you are using the Oregon Residential Specialty Code, you use Chapter 11 of the Oregon Residential Specialty Code. Trying to keep that clarity between what building type is covered under each one. Residential board has let this sort of letting the commercial code apply to these, what was normally the 3-story and under residential. So with that, let me go to our document. A few pieces we have here for review today include really an overview of some of the major pieces that have changed in ASHRAE 90.1 2016 to ASHRAE 90.1 2019. Would like to thank the people from Department of Energy, PNNL, Reed Hart and his team have already developed, and I meant to have this up already, but at energycodes.gov, that website is your friend. Under resources and training, they have already developed a group of PowerPoint presentations. Let me bring this up to full screen. A group of changes divided into envelope, lighting, and mechanical of what the major revisions were from ASHRAE 90.1 to ASHRAE 90.1 2016. Very informative, good idea to get what is happening in the code. There are a few pieces I'd like to go over today. I need to get out of the slideshow here. Let me check the chat.
Hey, Mark,
Okay.
this is Blake. I'm actually not seeing the slideshow.
Oh.
I see the agenda and I see what looks like a background of a canyon.
Oh, hold on, everyone. I need to do something here. Great. I truly apologize to everyone. Now I get the right screen up here. It was on pause. So to go again, as you'll see on the left side of the screen, ASHRAE, the PNNL has developed a set of, 3 large PowerPoints that are available for reviewing the changes from 90.1 2016 to 90.1 2019. Another way to look at the overview of what has changed is in the forward of ASHRAE 90.1 2019. To go through the bigger pieces we have here today on envelope, just wanted to give some bigger pieces that are happening for Windows. I will try to bring up, let me bring this one up, is that 90.1 has now gone to material neutral on windows and doors. In 2016 and for some time, they were divided into metal and non-metal frames. Everything has gone to metal frame. This slide, which I'll take to full screen just so, will show the bold, shows some of the changes, but if you're, this will create a little bit of confusion when you start out for the use of, if you had used metal frame versus a non-metal frame window. There are some winners and losers in this, but it is now material agnostic on their table. So really for fixed metal, the U factor for Oregon is really going to 0.36 statewide. Metal fixed windows will need to be there. Oh, that was the SHGC, excuse me. The U factor for metal framed windows, and I'll get up my drawing tools again. All right, here are really going from 0.38 to 0.36. That's one of the big revisions. If you're doing non-metal, by the way, you get a fairly high bar for fixed, or excuse me, operable fiberglass or wood windows. So again, from this, they changed from metal and non-metal framing to just fixed, operable, or entrance door are the U factors you'll see on your tables from this point forward. One other piece it says the air leakage section was revised to clarify compliance. What it does mean is that for air leakage testing, building air leakage blower door test really is part of the prescriptive path. There is a alternate path for doing sort of a commissioning of the envelope, but really blower door testing is part of the prescriptive and mandatory path for buildings today. That was one of the other major envelope items. The vestibule portions, as you'll see here under item 4, and I'll move my drawing tools in here, my little spotlight right here, is that they have added what was similar to Oregon's allowance for, and also in the IECC, for the use of air curtains. For automatic doors, you can put an air curtain on those to avoid a vestibule.
Mark, I think we have a question from David.
Okay, the question is from David Hesselum. Is it whole building or unit-based blower door testing. What they have done, David, is, get this back to normal, is that they have all or whole unit based. However, or whole building based, there is an allowance, I believe, at 50,000 square feet, it can be broken up. I'm trying to find. Yes, it's for buildings over 50,000 square feet of gross testing, gross conditioned floor area, permitted to be conducted on less than the whole building, provided they are tested and measured as area weighted based on the surface area. So that's the divider. That answer your question, David? Okay. All right. Under lighting, our poor lighting designers out there, I'll put this down. The lighting is, of course, where there's a lot of energy efficiency available. The lighting power density tables, both by space and building area method, were really tightened up again, looking at 100% LED based technology and updated efficacy values. There's a new simplified approach for contractors and designers who design or renovate opposite buildings up to 25,000 square feet. That sort of aligns with, there's a simplified path for mechanical systems. So they've come up with something for the lighting as well. Parking garage lighting was updated as well, sort of outside the normal space by space category. New standards for daylight responsiveness and a little bit more modification when it comes to side lighting requirements. And again, I would encourage people to both look at the PNNL PDFs. We're not really going to want to go. We're not really here to go through all of the changes today, but this just gives you an idea of what is coming. One piece that did come in on mechanical, and we'll talk about this more, is the allowance to use standard 90.4 for data centers, which 90.1 calls a computer room with over 10 kilowatts, I believe, of total connected load. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Worked on pumps, new efficiency tables for some of the equipment. New tables for some federally covered furnaces. I'm trying to look at something other than just that might be more a new table for for ceiling mounted computer room units. They're, sometimes they just miss some of the equipment types that are out there, so they now do have efficiency tables for new equipment. New metrics for heat pump and heat reclaim chillers. New requirements for reach-in coolers and freezers. And efficiency. This is something that they, for a very short period, and I'll highlight this one section, is that ASHRAE came up with something called a fan efficiency grade, which lasted one version of ASHRAE, and it's now called the fan energy index. I believe the PNNL people might be able to help out, but it's tied into new rulemaking at that level as well. So industry had looked for this. It will also be in the IECC for those in other states. Reporting fan power for ceiling fans. They have a methodology for doing that now. Sort of rolling down through heat reclaim, new energy recovery requirements that can help cover high-rise residential buildings, condenser heat recovery for acute care inpatient hospitals. So heat recovery has always been a fun area. They now have some better language for dealing with places that have a lot of potential heat to recover and also a lot of water use, such as a inpatient hospital. Energy cost budget, the changes primarily related to making sure that just alignment with the remainder of the code, always coming up with better language as they look at modeling under both Chapter 11 for the energy cost budget and under the Appendix G methodology. And again, they're noting that they have some clearer, more specific rules for how renewables are treated. Also updates for how you do rules in energy modeling paths or performance paths, depending on how you'd like to call it, for lighting modeling. So with that, I'd like to go into really looking at a new item for looking at the integration of residential buildings. One thing the division is hoping to do, again, is to avoid some of the confusion of going to Energy Book A, or Energy Book B, or Energy Book C, depending on whether you're residential, number of floors, if you're a 2-story over 1-story commercial or a 4 over 1. Regardless, the division is looking to have it that regardless of what code, or excuse me, regardless of the building, if you're in a building code, once you start there, you use the same energy provisions. And what we're needing to do, so you could have a 3-story residential building that would be outside of ASHRAE scope. However, if you had a 2 over 1, it would be inside the 90.1 scope. So we're making it so that regardless of the path that's taken, you will be using 90. If you are in the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, 90.1 2019 will be the energy code you use. And to go through some of the modifications, we'll try and look at this for residential integration. I'll try and take my view up to, and I apologize. We're going to be changing the purpose and is energy efficiency requirements of all buildings constructed under the Oregon Structural Specialty Code. Under the scope, buildings under the residential, sort of changing to buildings outside the scope, or any buildings constructed under the Oregon Residential Specialty Code, manufactured houses, etc., under section 2.2a. And then for residential lighting, there was to make sure that we know that dwelling unit lighting does apply to any of the buildings here. Current code says 75%. On section 9.4.3, 75% of the lighting is high efficacy. We're looking to change that to 100% and make sure we add that final sentence that dwelling unit floor area shall be excluded from the total building floor area under the building area compliance method. One thing that really, so when you're in a dwelling unit, whether R2, R3, or R4, the lighting and within those dwelling units is not counted and is more or less exempted from inclusion in your calculation, lighting power density calculations, as long as you have a certain percentage of the lighting being high efficacy. We want to make sure that go ahead and get that to the 100% that we know is available and ready today and cost effective, but also making sure that the language to us left a bit of an opening that you didn't have to do anything in the dwellings, but you could essentially add excluded square footage into your overall compliance.
Hey, Mark, we got a question from Chris Strang.
Okay. Will this include sleeping units also? So if it's in a, we're going to make this so it's for R2, R3, R4, there are some excluded. So the space by space methodology has specific sleeping units within it. So for if it's, which I believe includes fire stations, dormitories, and so forth that have sleeping units, they would be under the standard code. However, are you considering something like a sleeping unit at a, say, a care unit or other center? Chris, you can go ahead and ask that. You can unmute if you'd like. This is to Chris Strang.
Yeah, just thinking of sleeping units where you have an individual sleeping unit, like maybe 10 on a floor, and then you have a combined kitchen at the end and amenities. But you're using the term dwelling unit, which is definitely a separate definition, but the floor area inside sleeping unit would seem like it would be of similar.
And so give me real quick. Well, so the code currently just only has a building area method for multifamily and apartments. It does not have, but it does have what would be more considered occupancies with sleeping units, such as dormitories, probably congregate living. But there was a lack of what we would call a dwelling unit in the space by space tables. And we thought that was what the intent of this exception was really for. We, with a little more feedback, we can maybe make sure there isn't a hole by saying dwelling unit or dwelling unit and sleeping units. We can add that to our list for considerations. Thank you. So that's for integrating residential buildings. One other piece we wanted to look at was we had asked NIA about something as 90.4, which is the computer and data center standard, is brought into ASHRAE 90.1. There was an issue that it did not say which year ASHRAE 90.4 was being used, and you'll have to forgive me, I've got the wrong A, B, and C notes underneath this, so please, that's for tomorrow's meeting. Wanted to look at what could and couldn't work. They gave NIA and some of their subcontractors gave us some good feedback on this, and because these are such large spaces, and of course we have some very large data centers, we'd like to make sure we're referencing the latest version of ASHRAE standard 90.4, and that would be 90.4 2019. So going back to the, excuse me. We're looking to make sure that we, number one, try and align the definitions with what's in 90.4. ASHRAE has some triggers for the use of 90.1 triggers the use of 90.4 for computer rooms that have over 10 kW of connected load. Under standard 90.4, these are actually called data centers, and then computer rooms or anything underneath that value. We're just really just going to align the definitions with 90.4. It's a non-substantive change, it's just to get it there. The second piece that we're looking at is bringing in the reference standard 90.4, actually putting into the normative references. It isn't in there now, but to make sure that we clarify that ASHRAE standard 90.4 2019 is the adopted version for the state of Oregon. Under the mechanical sections, we are looking to make this, it's sort of an optional path currently. And some of that has been because it's very difficult if you're adding a data center in the middle of, say, a high-rise building. It's very difficult to use standard 90.4. We are looking to make it a mandatory compliance for data centers that are new construction in a new building. That way we get more efficiency on more buildings, again, in a state where we do have lots of very, 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 very big server farms that draw more energy than some of our cities. Get that brought in appropriately. And at the same time, modifying the 90.4 in section 8 for power. There's a requirement for the power for a data center to potentially be used. And we're looking that if it is a data center, any new data center should meet 90.4 2019. And both of these would be fairly potential significant efficiency improvements for the state, really by clarifying the use and application. Any questions from the group? All right. Moving on again, because of the limited timeline, just really the request that we're waiting to try and make sure we had ComCheck and other pieces available before we could start. People are really looking to get this national model code out and running. The only other items that the division is really looking at are trying to bring in some missing pieces that were in our 2014 code that were useful, were being used, provide efficiency improvements. And some of these are actually falling under, no, to my Zoom. Are actually found in ASHRAE 90.1 addenda. One of them has already been passed. Parking garage ventilation. Our 2014 code required sensors and variable ventilation. I think it might have even gone back to our 2010 code. The IECC and 90.1 had fairly extensive exceptions that would have pretty much exempted any parking garage in Oregon. There is a new addendum coming out, and we're going to essentially get rid of the, and what ASHRAE has already passed for them. Their next code is to eliminate the fan power exemption that was released to me. We'll look and see which code had the, I guess, lower trigger. If our 2014 code did smaller garages, we'll go with that. If it's a bigger, if the 90.1 addendum is bigger or applies to smaller garage, you will apply it to the smaller of the two. The other piece we want to put in there is we just do need to make sure we reference to the right portions of the building code and the mechanical code about control and where the ventilation triggers are, to make sure that we do still maintain the health and safety. This is one of the pieces that we at the division do. We want to make sure that we do get that alignment with the building code of anything that happens in the model code. Item number 3. In our 2014 code, we had a requirement for, if it was a package unit, say a rooftop unit or a through the wall package terminal unit that had over 6 kW of electric heat. It was that if it also had cooling, it would be required to have a heat pump as its first stage of heating. We're looking to bring that back, but make it a little clearer this time around that it would be for new equipment, 20 tons of capacity and smaller, whether packaged or a split system, that equipment, so if you have over 6 kW or more electric heat for that system, you would need to make it a heat pump for the first stage. We had some issues come up in the earlier editions of the code that when people were doing replacements, the breaker size actually went up on the equipment, and that was not making it a cost effective and also requiring people to go beyond the scope. So only on new construction and new equipment first time will be that limitation. One piece we had in the 2014 and earlier codes were some limitations and allowances on radiant heating, but code has allowed you to put pretty much as much radiant heat outdoors as you want. But for buildings such as, say, a Department of Transportation garage or a, let's say, the loading dock for a warehouse, there was no allowance to put radiant heat indoors without really considering it a conditioned space. We've had an allowance in 2014 to allow the use of radiant heat as long as it was on either a timer or an occupancy sensor, so that you had to make a conscious effort to turn the equipment on and excuse me, that it would go off automatically. Really, you could consider a this has been well accepted, been well used, and also some of this language we're actually going to be able to clean up a little bit of language for that outdoor and indoor radiant heating to make sure that it does go off automatically, or have some automatic control for it for limited occupancy use, instead of having it just go off on automatically in spaces and just run continuously. We can potentially actually have an efficiency improvement from that. The only two other items is we saw that there was a, we now have a vestibule exception. Oregon brought in the IECC, what is it? Air curtain option very early on. It's now in 90.1. We've had some stakeholder feedback looking for other ways other than doing a vestibule or alternatives for, a 2,500 square foot office building. You have to add 50 square feet of additional space. For that, we're looking at the original paper that was written and used by ASHRAE for inclusion of vestibules, and we found that that had a leakage number for buildings, and they looked at the building types that are included in the national modeling, and we saw that currently the new model 90.1 2014 will be setting building leakage at 0.4 CFM per square foot of floor area. We're looking to, for some of these small buildings, give them an exception that if their testing is 25% lower, they can eliminate the vestibule. We saw that this will exceed the savings from the vestibule. The overall leakage, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Well, the overall leakage is better, is reduced more than what the vestibule provides, and it provides savings 24 hours a day, 365 days a year versus only on the torso. So really happy to potentially put forward an alternative method. The other area, we received some feedback from stakeholders, including Portland Public Schools. Heard they're having some issues on looking for some alternative controlled outlets. There was a proposal put forward, the proposed addendum to 90.1 that went through. It didn't pass, but it does provide an option for controlled outlets that, number one, if you could, and here are the ways you do it, if your building passes by 5% or better, if your envelope under ComCheck passes, or your light by 3% or better, or under ComCheck, your lighting efficiency improves by 5%. These are some potentials that were in that proposal, and we're doing our last analysis on that, which gives you an option to, and always looking by ways to maybe get same or better efficiency to doing controlled outlets, because there's just you're not allowed to use an energy model to trade off for that, and we're looking. We were getting some feedback. We really a lot of people were selecting the IECC path due to the inability to do any trade off on that. So we're looking to give people more options, and that is the extent of what the division would be looking at to do modifications. Those 5 items would be on a separate, as well as the 90.4. So really 6 items. A supplemental check sheet that would be added to the current ComCheck page. We're hoping to make sure we can get this done quickly. We're looking for additional feedback today, but that's where the division is. This is the process. We're looking to get 90.1 out there quickly, but we also wanted to reach out to everyone here today. And at future meetings, if people are having ideas, please submit them, get them to us. But really, we're trying to make this really simple for everyone and to get this out on the street as fast as possible. The more buildings we get constructed to the next code, the more return we get for energy savings to Oregonians, and less impact on the climate. The sooner we get more buildings to the next code. So with that, I'd like to reach out and see if there's any other chat from people. And just to let everyone know, this is sort of our kickoff of the ideas and how this is going to go forward. We're going to be having other meetings and review, but we're really looking to get this to the Construction Industry Energy Board at their next meeting, if possible. Oh, and also hats off again, another thanks to PNNL for having developed the getting ComCheck out there for everyone to look at. Haven't heard how that's working for everyone, but also sure they're getting the first bugs out. But and also to the Zero Code, to the Zero Code organization and Architecture 2030 for getting a 90.1 2019 Zero Code calculator available for us to use. Nice.
Mark, we got a question from Gail Boger in the chat.
Okay. Gail Boger asks, will there be considerations for lighting in senior facilities for older eyes that require higher light levels? In current code and in licensed senior care facilities in past codes, and I need to make sure that we have this still available, is that, if you are required by under your licensing through another state organization to meet certain levels, and you cannot get there, that is health, safety, and welfare will not be able to trump this, and you will be able to go to higher light levels. This is a really big area. Worked with an old friend of mine, Robert Dupuy, on going through what's possible, what can still be done, and we know that there is sort of parallel work to this day on what to do for senior care facilities. But currently, if OHA DHS is requiring you to meet a certain level, that would provide potential exemptions from the LPD levels. Okay, I'm seeing a question from Mike Steffen about ventilation requirements for multifamily buildings in the code, especially updates in Washington for balanced ventilation. Are major changes to ventilation requirements coming with the Oregon code update? Mike, that would be falling primarily within the structural code and the mechanical code, which were just released. Probably something will be coming via model codes for our next edition of the OMSC and some side noting to the OSSC, but can't say at this point what's happening in the mechanical and building code. Any other questions? So, have a new question on best guess. Thank you for the word guess in there from Mike Manzi. What is your best guess on the timing of this going into effect? Our hope is to make this available April 1st with a grace period. We hope we can make this happen. Most likely, the grace period, we're looking at that as well. You're probably expecting a loss of moving on to this as the mandatory code after grace period. I would expect possibly, can't say for certain, either it's the July 1 or October 1st, pending, of course, board actions and going forward with the rulemaking. But that's best guess is first, as first adoption, possibly April or July, and then mandatory probably the loss, the grace period extending through October, which is pretty much aligning with what was given for the grace period for the residential code to give people time to get up to speed on this. Well, if there isn't anything else at this point, we will continue to post actual code modification language to the website. We'll be, rough drafts of that to make sure everyone can see what's being proposed. Again, it will be, a lot of the administrative portion, just making sure we get all of that aligned with the structural code to make sure that enforcement is good. Again, as we're hearing, everybody's really trying to get used to the 90.1 language. It's very different format, having spent a lot of years working on development for the IECC. 90.1 is similar, but it takes a little getting used to, getting to know where things are in the code. I look forward to having, probably being the first statewide adoption of 90.1 2019, and look forward to beginning the training for our building officials, outreach from all of our stakeholders out there, working with builders, AIA, more outreach from this Architecture 2030 people, the PNNL, the Zero Coalition. Really look forward to getting this next code out there for beginning and then start the process all over again. So with that, I'll give just a minute more. Otherwise, I'd really like to thank everybody for who showed up today. And thanks to the BCD policy and administrative people who couldn't do this without them. We're still learning how to do different online meeting methods. Be looking for information regarding the construction industry energy board meetings. Looking at the Oregon, we'll have a little bit more information at the upcoming Oregon Structural Board. Similar to some of the information we're presenting today, but a lot shorter. And thank you very much. Anything else, Laura?
Nope, we're all done. Thank you.
Andy?
Nope, not for me.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, and stay safe.
Thank you. Take care.